It started with her fixing my collar. Then she didn't let go. I never thought a simple gesture could make me feel so exposed. The office was quiet, the kind of silence that wraps around you like a heavy blanket. I was straightening my tie in the mirror, fumbling with the knot, when she appeared behind me, her hands gentle, confident, brushing the edge of my collar as if it was the most delicate thing in the world. She didn't say anything, just leaned in close enough for me to catch the faint scent of jasmine and something older, warmer, maybe her perfume, or maybe the calm she carried like a shield. I felt my breath hitch, but I didn't dare look at her. Not yet. Her fingers lingered longer than necessary. I could hear my heart pounding in the quiet room, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled back just enough to meet my eyes in the mirror's reflection. Those eyes, steady, soft, yet unreadable, caught mine and held them hostage. She was older, mid-40s if I had to guess, with lines at the corners of her eyes that hinted at 1,000 stories I'd never hear. Her hair was streaked with silver, but still carried a gloss, framing her face like a painting. There was a grace in the way she moved, like someone who had learned to survive by being quietly strong. I was barely in my 20s, fumbling through the awkwardness of early adulthood, but right then I felt like the one who needed fixing. Not just the collar, but something deeper, something I hadn't named yet. The moment stretched. My fingers twitched at my sides, and I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how loud my own skin sounded in that still air. She shifted closer, her presence suddenly overwhelming but tender. I wanted to speak, to ask why, but my voice caught somewhere between my ribs. "Don't look so nervous," she said softly, her lips barely moving, like a secret between us. I forced a half-smile, but my hands betrayed me, trembling slightly. There was something dangerous in this quiet intimacy, something electric and unspoken. I knew crossing this invisible line could ruin everything, could destroy the safe distance we'd both carefully maintained. And yet, I didn't want her to let go. She stepped back, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. The room seemed colder suddenly, the hum of the city outside barely audible behind the glass. I was caught between wanting to run and the stubborn pull to stay. Just then, the sharp ring of the doorbell sliced through the silence like a knife. It was sudden, jarring, pulling us both out of the fragile bubble. Her gaze flickered toward the door, then back to me. A question hung unspoken between us, heavy and full of possibility. I could feel it, the tension, the risk, the quiet hope, that something had just shifted and nothing would ever be the same. She didn't move to answer. Instead, she stepped closer again, and this time, when she touched my collar, she didn't let go. And neither did I. I never wanted to think about the why, the reasons this was a bad idea. But in that moment, standing so close that I could count the faint freckles on her hand as it brushed my shoulder, the questions crowded in like unwelcome guests. She was Marianne, 46, maybe 47. I knew a little about her, enough to make my chest tighten. She'd been married once, long ago, a marriage that ended quietly, the kind you hear about but never understand fully. A divorce marked by silence and shadows, and after that, years spent focusing on her work, raising her daughter, my best friend's older sister. That was the taboo, the impossible part one tried not to dwell on. I was 25, barely out of college, still finding my footing. Marian wasn't just a woman I admired from afar. She was the woman who ran my best friend's family company, the one everyone respected and sometimes feared. Crossing the line wasn't just dangerous. It felt like stepping into a minefield, where one wrong move could explode into 1,000 shattered relationships. But standing here now, I wasn't thinking about rules or consequences. I was caught in the gravity of her presence. I caught myself imagining the stories behind those quiet eyes, regrets wrapped in soft smiles, moments lost in time, the kind of love that slipped away or never fully bloomed. Inside, I was wrestling with a mix of awe and shame. How could someone like me, still so young and raw, make sense of the depth in her gaze? I wanted to say something, anything, but the words tangled up in my throat. Instead, I kept my hands still, afraid that any movement would betray the storm inside me. She shifted slightly, her fingers lingering just a moment longer on my collar. There was hesitation there, maybe a hesitation that mirrored my own. I sensed the weight of things unsaid between us, like invisible threads pulling tight. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered, voice low enough that I almost missed it. "Neither should I," I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. It was a confession wrapped in defiance. Neither of us belonged in this moment. But here we were, caught between what was right and what felt unavoidable. Then, without breaking eye contact, she reached out and lightly traced the line where my jaw met my neck. A touch so gentle it felt like a question. I swallowed hard and closed the distance, letting my fingers brush hers. For a heartbeat, the world slipped away, the quiet room, the looming risks, even the doorbell's distant echo. There was just this fragile connection, a thread of something real and complicated tying us together. I didn't know where this was heading, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid to follow. The knock at the door wasn't soft this time. Sharp, insistent. Marian froze, her hand still resting lightly on my jaw. The air thickened, and I felt my heart slam against my ribs like it wanted out. "Wait," she whispered, pulling back just enough to keep her distance, but not quite letting go. I wanted to reach for her again, but the sound came again, louder, more urgent. "Stay here," she said, voice tight, eyes flickering with something I couldn't read. She moved toward the door, but then stopped, as if listening. My gaze locked on hers, torn between wanting to follow and knowing I shouldn't. Before she could open it, the door swung wide, and there he was. Her ex-husband, older, still sharp-eyed, wearing that same quiet authority I'd seen before. The kind of man who doesn't need to raise his voice to command a room. "Marianne." His tone was calm, but carried an edge, like a warning. "I wasn't expecting you today." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced at me, eyes wide, vulnerable for a second, then back at him. "This is Tom," she said, her voice steady but strained. "Tom, this is Alex." The name felt heavy in the room. I swallowed, suddenly feeling every inch of my 25 years. Tom looked at me, then back at Marianne, a flicker of something sharp in his gaze. "Alex," he said slowly. "Right." A pause hung between them like a held breath. Then Tom's eyes narrowed slightly. "I didn't know you were seeing people." Marianne's jaw tightened. "I'm not." The tension snapped, and I felt caught in a trap I hadn't even known existed. Tom stepped forward, voice low. "I just came to drop off some papers. Nothing more." But his gaze lingered too long on me, like he was searching for something he didn't want to find. I wanted to disappear. Marian turned back to me, whispering, "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "No, it's okay." But it wasn't. Not even close. When Tom left, the room seemed smaller, colder. Marian closed the door behind him and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. I stepped forward, but she held up a hand. "We can't," she said simply. "Not now." Her eyes begged me to understand, but my skin buzzed with frustration and something darker, guilt. I wanted to reach for her again, to erase the tension, but the weight of Tom's presence still lingered. Instead, we stood there, the silence between us thick and trembling. Then, without thinking, I took her hand again. This time, she didn't pull away, but neither of us spoke. The room was full of unspoken questions and impossible choices, and I wondered, how much longer before one of us broke? The weight of the night pressed on me, thick and suffocating. Marianne's hand was warm in mine, but it wasn't enough to drown out the storm inside. I watched her as she paced the small living room, fingers trembling, biting her lip, like she was fighting some invisible battle. "I can't keep pretending," she finally said, voice breaking. Whatever this is, it's wrong. It's reckless." I swallowed hard. "You're scared." She stopped, eyes flashing. "Of course I'm scared. You don't understand what it means. For me, for everyone. Try me." I challenged, though my voice shook. Her breath hitched, then she laughed, a bitter, shaky sound. You don't even know what I lost. What I've spent years trying to forget. I stepped closer, heart pounding louder than reason. Then tell me. Her eyes softened for a moment, but then hardened again. There was a time I thought I could have it all: love, family, respect. But I lost my daughter. Not to death, to distance, to mistakes I can't fix. The words hung between us, raw and jagged. I wanted to reach out, to take that pain from her. But instead, I clenched my fists. And you think I'm a distraction? A mistake? No, she whispered. You're the only thing that feels real. The confession stunned me, left me breathless. But then came the flicker, the flash of something I wasn't ready for. Jealousy. I saw you today, I said, voice rough. With Tom. He looked like he wanted to fight for you. She didn't answer right away. Her silence was worse than any lie. I hate that I'm competing with someone from your past, I said, stepping closer, eyes searching hers. I hate that you still care. Her breath hitched. Then, in the dim light, she reached up and brushed a stray lock of hair from my forehead, trembling. I don't know if I can choose, she whispered. Not yet. The room felt electric, dangerous, fragile. We stood there, inches apart. The tension was unbearable. Would I lean in? Would she pull away? Or would everything shatter? Before I could decide, the sound of a phone vibrating against the coffee table broke the moment. Both of us looked down. The screen flashed a name neither of us expected. And everything changed. The phone on the table buzzed again, relentless. Marianne's hand hovered over it, hesitation thick in the air like fog. Finally, she picked it up. Her face paled as she read the message. I caught a glimpse before she locked the screen, a name I didn't recognize, but one that clearly meant something. Who's that? I asked, voice low but edged with sudden sharpness. She bit her lip, then looked away, eyes clouded. It's complicated. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Try me. Her hands trembled. Someone told Tom about us. The words hit me like a punch. Wait, who? How? I don't know. She shook her head, frustrated and scared. But Tom's not just coming by to drop papers anymore. He's trying to control everything, to keep me under his thumb. I swallowed hard, feeling the ground shift beneath us. The safety we thought we had was an illusion. She sank onto the couch, wrapping her arms around herself like a shield. I didn't want you dragged into this. Dragged in? I echoed. I'm already here. Her eyes met mine, full of regret, fear, but also something fierce. You don't understand what that man can do. The air thickened with unspoken threats. I wanted to protect her, to tell her it'd be okay, but the truth was, none of this felt okay anymore. I paced, trying to process the betrayal, the lies tangled in the past like poisonous roots. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded, voice rising despite myself. She flinched. Because I didn't want to lose you. I'm not going anywhere, I said, softer now, stepping close again. Her gaze dropped, vulnerability cracking through the armor. But this changes everything, she said quietly. If Tom knows, if others know, we're both in danger. The room felt smaller, darker. I could see the fight in her, the same fight I wanted to join. Then she reached out, grasping my hand tightly. Whatever happens, she said, voice fierce, we face it together. And for the first time, fear and hope tangled into something dangerous but real. Because now, nothing was safe. And maybe, just maybe, that was how it had to be. The night stretched on, heavy and restless, as if the walls around us held their breath. Marian sat close, her fingers entwined with mine, but her eyes were distant, searching, haunted. I'm tired of hiding, she said at last, voice raw. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Me too. For so long, we danced around what this was, a fragile thread between love and chaos. Now, the choice was laid bare. Do we risk everything? I asked, heart pounding. She met my gaze, trembling but steady. I don't know if I'm brave enough. I reached out, brushing her cheek, feeling the tremble beneath her skin. We don't have to be perfect, I whispered. Just honest. She closed her eyes, then leaned into my touch, a silent surrender. But then, hesitation flickered again, the shadow of fear creeping back. What if this ruins everything? She breathed. Maybe it already has, I admitted. Silence settled between us, thick, uneasy, yet charged with something real. I don't want to lose you, she confessed, voice breaking. Then don't, I said, pulling her closer. Our breaths mingled, fragile promises hanging in the air. Yet, just as the space between us closed, she pulled back slightly, eyes searching mine for something unspoken. Whatever happens next, she said softly, I want you to know, I never stopped caring. The words hung like a delicate thread, fragile but strong. I smiled, the ache in my chest easing just a little. Neither did I. We stayed like that, suspended in a moment where love and fear collided. The future was uncertain, full of risks and unanswered questions. But for now, that was enough. Because sometimes, just being seen is the bravest thing of all. And in the quiet aftermath, we found something worth holding on to, even if the path ahead was still unknown. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, painting the room in pale gold. Mary Ann was sitting by the window, her fingers wrapped around a mug of tea, eyes distant but calm. I watched her for a moment, marveling at how the night's chaos had softened into something quieter, something like peace. We hadn't solved everything. Tom's shadow still lingered, and the future was uncertain. But in that fragile dawn, we had found a truth neither of us could deny. She turned and smiled, a small, genuine curve of her lips that reached her eyes. It's messy, she said softly. Life, love us. I nodded. Messy but real. There was no grand declaration, no perfect ending. Just two imperfect people who had chosen to face the unknown together. We sat there, the silence between us comfortable now, filled with unspoken promises and the weight of what had been shared. Maybe it was foolish to hope. Maybe the world outside would pull us apart again. But for the first time, I believed that love didn't have to be flawless to be enough. As she reached out and squeezed my hand, I knew this wasn't the end, it was a beginning. Fragile, uncertain, but ours. Thank you for sharing this journey with us. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?